Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here. Drew Pien with Brandon Krikorian on a Sunday night. Pretty interesting week of games. Brandon, how's it going? I know you might not be doing well, but
No, definitely not doing pretty well today. But yeah, no. Besides my team's game, the other games, definitely some surprises early on, and then we this is just after the Sunday night game. That was actually a pretty good game. I don't think going into that game, many people thought it was going to be an interesting game or exciting game, but it turned out to be a pretty good one. So. I'm sure that's where we'll start, but yeah, definitely some interesting games in the early window today.
yeah. So we'll start Sunday night. The Chargers ended up beating the Steelers 41-37. Yeah, I think going into it was a game that you got two wild card contenders, but the Chargers had come off a couple bad losses, a few ugly losses,
Yeah.
and the Steelers were a team that I think we all know the Steelers they're just not great. They have a solid coach. They have, a couple pieces on defense, a couple pieces ish on offense, but other than that, nothing much. But it was an interesting game. It was a close game. The Chargers got out to a pretty big lead off the start, but the Steelers ended up coming back. So, do you have any first initial reactions to that game?
Well, the one thing I'll say is the Steelers. You definitely appreciate the fight that they had. I mean, to put up 27 points in the fourth quarter. For a team that struggles to put up points, and if you really think about it, they kind of, they didn't get bailed out because it was a pass interference, but after the blocked punt where the guy could have probably picked it up and took it for a touchdown, but it went out of bounds. It was third down, and if there's no pass interference on that play, maybe he catches it, maybe he doesn't, but let's say it's incomplete, they're kicking a field goal there. So, they get a touchdown there, they drive down the field again and get another touchdown. They're moving the ball down the field, which again is pretty impressive for a team that definitely struggles offensively. Even still in this game, Ben was missing a lot of throws. But definitely appreciate the fight that they had. And again, they're a 5-4-1 team. They're probably worse than that, to be honest. They're just not that good of a team. Again, they're missing Minka Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt this game. So clearly, if they're playing, maybe the game's different. But I definitely, again, I don't love this team. I never have, but I definitely respect them for coming back in this game when it looked like they were dead. I was thinking about texting you saying when it was 27-10, if the Chargers go up another touchdown and maybe they get another stop, turnover, whatever, like you want to just record like in end of the third quarter or something because
Yeah.
it looked like this game was over. And yeah, again, they took the lead, the Steelers, so they almost won this game. But yeah, the right team did win this game in the end. But I definitely appreciate the fight that the Steelers had.
Yeah, it made for a really interesting game. Overall, does this game mean anything long term? No. I think the Steelers are done. I think the Steelers probably finish
Yeah.
8-9 at best to me. Chargers, this is a huge win for them in the wild card race. Do I view them as really being able to compete though? No. I just, to me, they're a weak wild card team. They have some pieces on offense. It's a loaded offense. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Eckler, Herbert, but I just don't think they're pretty young. Staley's not a proven coach, so yeah. But
But it was a big game for the wild card because if the Chargers lose, they're 5-5. The Steelers are 6-3-1. So that obviously would make a difference. The Chargers are, I think, six right now in the playoffs, and the Steelers, I think, the last team that's right outside the wild card. So it would have been a big game. I still, even if the Chargers would have lost this game, though, I'd still have them finishing above the Steelers.
yeah,
They are the better team, so it maybe wouldn't make that much of a difference. But again, if there ever came to a tiebreaker or anything, and again, that tie that the Steelers have, it does work in their favor because it's not a loss. But yeah, this was definitely like we were talking about a game that I really wasn't even that focused on or interested in going into it, and again, it turned out to be a pretty good game.
I guess we'll move on to, well, actually, okay. First thing I want to say is our predictions. I'm 2-2 right now.
Yeah,
Brennan,
I'm 1-4, not a good week.
not a great week. I guess I shouldn't have taken some of the games you took. Eagles Saints, a game I said I was confident in. I think you were confident
Yeah,
in as well. Just didn't go our way. The Saints looking like they're starting to unravel a bit, may fall down to earth a bit without Winston. The defense just did not have a good game either. I still have the Bucks game tomorrow night So yeah, but we didn't hit on Seahawks, and we got what we wanted. No Murray, and the
Exactly. Yeah.
Seahawks still just cannot find a way to produce.
They had nothing.
I We talked about the Seahawks' ability to, even if they were to lose this game, if they were to still be able to stay in the race. I think they're done. I said even if they lost this game, if they fought a really competitive game and looked really good, like a really good wildcard team, I would still give them a shot because with Russell Wilson and that offense and Pete Carroll still a good coach, I still think they could have made it. But you had this was a gimme game. No Murray, you're supposed to win this game, and the fact that you didn't even
Yeah.
really put up a fight, really, to me, it looks like the Seahawks are done.
I've seen some things after this game that, again, Wilson, he talked about leaving after last year and in the offseason, and now people are saying after the year this year, it's becoming more of a possibility. And again, this loss, I mean, this cements their season. Again, there's no coming back from being 3-7. This is a game you should win at home, against no Murray, no Hopkins. It's honestly becoming a lot. You could see that Wilson's most likely going to leave after this season. Again, if last season, after the year they had last season, he wanted to leave, there's no reason that he wouldn't want to leave after a season like this.
Yeah, they put up a graphic in the game. It was like teams that start 3-7, I think have like a 1% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
I give them a 1% chance. I'm gonna give it to them, especially because there's an extra game this year. But that's all I'm giving them. The 1% chance is literally that Russell Wilson turns into an MVP. Russell Wilson. I have no faith in the defense. I have no faith in any sort of chemistry really building. But technically speaking, they could come back from 3-7. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to say their season's done. I'll give them the 1% chance, because maybe it happens, some miracle. But yeah, their season's probably done. The Cardinals, on the other hand, it was a big win. I mean, you rest Murray, even though maybe he probably could have played. If this was a playoff game, he probably plays, is my assumption. But you give him this week of rest. You think you might lose this game, but to pick up this win and to really, it's going to be hard for this Cardinals team to choke the 1 seed. They can still obviously do it. They're 9-2. The Packers are 8-3. Cowboys 7-3. So they can still choke it, but to get this win is huge because you should theoretically get Murray back for your next game. You should be the 1 seed, and if you can get home field as the Cardinals, like, the bottom line is you're not the most talented team in this conference, even though you have the best record. So to be able to get if you're able to get home field, that's huge to me. I would probably pick you over teams that I wouldn't have picked you over had you not had home field.
Yeah, and they got huge help with Green Bay losing, with Dallas losing.
Yeah.
Again, Tampa plays tomorrow, so who knows? And then obviously Rams are on a bye as well, but they already beat the Rams once. They're 4-0 in their division, so that's a huge help. Again, and that's a game you go into Seattle thinking you're most likely going to lose, and then rather Green Bay or Dallas could win or lose. But you're at least obviously you're not thinking you're going to lose, but it was looking like you're going to lose without Murray. So that's just a huge win. That's like a 2-game swing right there, between the top seed. And yeah, they're a team that needs the top seed, because they're young. Even though they're only 3-2 at home, they're actually 6-0 on the road. Obviously, you'd rather play at home than on the road. So that was a huge win for them.
Yeah, so they get a bye that I think you brought up last week. They get a bye now, so Murray should be able to come back. Bears, Rams, Lions, Colts, Cowboys, Seahawks is how they finish off their year. So they've got some easy games in there. Like, you get the Lions, you get the Bears off the bye, which I think is a relatively easy game. But you've got home against the Colts, and then you go at Dallas. That's back to back. So Christmas night you play the Colts, and then the next week after that you travel to Dallas with the Cowboys. Those are going to be 2 big games, especially, and so the Rams game is going to be big too. That's on December 13th, but I mean, that January 2nd game at Dallas could be for home field. That could very well be for home field, assuming the Cowboys don't find a way to just, keep choking. But yeah,
Choking.
But yeah, I think we should talk about the Cowboys game. I think it was a huge game.
Yeah, no, we can talk a little bit about it. Yeah, I mean, you can talk about it all you want. So
yeah, so I mean, so the Chiefs obviously beat the Cowboys. It's a big game because this was a game where we weren't sure if the Chiefs were fully back or if they had just had a couple nice wins, but they ended up winning, getting their 4th win in a row. The offense didn't necessarily look great at all times, but I think the defense, even though no Mari and no CD for the second half, you have to be ecstatic if you're a Chiefs fan, because you just have to have faith that the offense is going to be fine. And I think all Chiefs fans are completely confident in the offense. I'm confident in the offense to be fine by the time we get to the playoffs. You could argue it's fine now. They just didn't have a great game. But the defense played really well. The secondary had some surprising plays. There was a play to end the first half. That's where CD got hurt, where what was his name? Ward, something Ward? Tre'Davious Ward?
Chardavius Ward.
Chardavious Ward, yes. Chardavious Ward or whatever. He made a nice play there. A little bit of an underthrow by Dak, but the Chiefs defense played really well. And to me, I know I hopped off the Chiefs just a few weeks ago, but I'm ready to say that they're back fully. Chris Jones, just looking back on our game, on the Chiefs' prior games, and looking at their defense and saying, wow, their defense is so much worse than last year. I know they don't have Chris Jones a lot of those games, and now I'm looking back at that and saying, okay, yeah, like Chris Jones just makes such a big difference. The pressure up the middle, he batted a pass that technically sealed the game, even though it was pretty much over by then anyways. 3.5 sacks on top of that. I know he's not going to have 3.5 sacks every game, but his presence was clearly felt today, and I think if he even plays 50% of as good today as he does for the rest of the season, I really think the Chiefs team is going to continue to be hard to beat, because with an AFC that's not looking great, I mean, do you trust Tennessee to go in there and beat them, or even to host the Chiefs? Like, I'm picking the Chiefs. I'm picking the Chiefs over the Bills. I'm picking the Chiefs over the Ravens. I'm picking the Chiefs over pretty much everybody. The only team that hasn't looked bad as of recent is New England, but nobody has. I mean, do you have faith in their offense to go into Arrowhead or even to host the Chiefs and beat the Chiefs? I don't think many people would right now. So I would have the Chiefs as my team to beat for sure right now. Especially with the way we've seen some AFC teams start to crumble.
I would have them as my team to beat, but do I think they're all the way back? No. I think they're maybe 70 to 80% to what they were the last couple of years. I don't think they'll ever reach what they were the last couple of years. I think they'll get to some sort of a level that's close to it, but I don't know if they'll ever reach that level all the way. Again, this one, both offenses were really bad. The Chiefs, it's not like they weren't impressed. Again, the first 2 drives, they were impressive, but after that, they did absolutely nothing the rest of the game offensively. It was their defense that held, foot, and they're the ones who really controlled the game. But, the big thing for Chris Jones in that defense and they even said on the broadcast, but he was playing defensive end at the beginning of the season, or at least when he was playing. I know he was injured, like you said, but he's to me, he's always been an inside player who can just create pressure up the middle that could lead to a Frank Clark when they had a D Ford that guys on the outside can go, or you bring a blitzer and like a Tyrann Mathieu. So I don't know why they always had him on the outside at the beginning of the season. And again, today, obviously, he had 3.5 sacks from the inside, but I always viewed him as an inside guy who can create pressure. So I think that was just a mistake on their part. That clearly they've corrected. But yeah, I mean, their defense played great in this one. Again, no Amari, no Tyron Smith, no CD for the second half. Now, would the CD one have mattered? Probably not, because again, he played the first half and he didn't do anything. The Cowboys didn't do anything. But if Amari's playing, I think it maybe matters. Mattered.
I mean, Cedric had a big drop.
It could have. Well, yeah, the drops did not have. And again, the game, from the first play of the game, you knew the first 3 plays of the game, you knew it was not going to go the Cowboys' way. Dak misses Gallup on at least 25-yard pass. First play of the game. Noah Brown, who that should be CeeDee Lamb, because if Amari's playing, then that's CD on that route, misses a third and 6 or whatever. That's a 20-plus yard route. So you just knew that was a drop, like I said. So then Cedric Wilson had a drop. He had 2 drops. One of them was negated by the penalty, but again, that was a huge drop if it counted. Noah Brown had 2 drops. It just wasn't a good game. I think if Amari plays, it's different. Is this game going to be in the 30s like we thought it was going to be? Maybe not, because again, neither offense really could move the ball. And again, I think the noise did make a difference. I mean, like the offense was completely out of sync for us. A lot of penalties, a lot of just no one. If you looked, a lot of people were waving their hands. They just had no clue what the play was. So I think it was just bad preparation on the Cowboys' part, that's a failure by coaching. By the coaching staff and by the players, because you had all week to prepare. You knew exactly the environment you were going into, and you still weren't fully prepared. So I think that's on coaching.
Long term for the Cowboys, are you worried? Does this game worry you at all?
No. I think what worries me is these next 2 games, because like I said, this stretch is 3 games in 12 days, and you already went in injured or with COVID problems, and now you have more injuries and a little bit more concern, I guess, confidence-wise in your offense. Again, the defense played really well. I was really impressed with the defense. Again, except for the first 2 drives, they were great the rest of the game. But you play the Raiders Thursday. We'll see if CD even plays. I mean, again, he has a concussion, a short week, and
Probably
then you play
not.
this. Yeah, probably not. Maybe he does, but I would honestly
I
doubt it,
doubt it. Yeah.
which makes me worried because then you're playing with Noah Brown and Cedric Wilson again. But then you play the Saints next Thursday, and they're in a bad spot right now, but Kamara should be back for that game. Maybe they go to Hill in that one, and Semion's not the guy there, and maybe they change some stuff by then. So who knows? But yeah, it's these next two games are gonna be tough. You have to at least split them, and if you can somehow go to it, you at least have to win Thanksgiving. If you win Thanksgiving and you lose the Saints game, it's okay. But you just can't lose this Raiders game because then it's so much pressure on that Saints game where it's almost like a must win at that point. Even though you'd still be they're 7-3 right now. Like if you were losing the next few games, you're 7-5. That's just not a good position to be in. You at least have to split them, but you really have to win the Raiders game first to make sure.
I don't know. I think right now you're playing for the 1 seed, and if you don't have the 1 seed, then I think whatever you finish is whatever you finish. You're probably not, even if you fall to 7-5, you're not losing the division. So I guess
Yeah.
if you were to go 1-1 in these, it's not the end of the world, but I think to have a chance at the 1 seed, I do think you have to go 2-0. I do.
Yes, if you have for a chance for the 1 seed, you have to go 2-0. If you go 1-1, you're most likely out of it. Because you do have a tougher schedule. I mean, you have a little bit of a tough schedule. Again, you do play the Cardinals later in the season. But division-wise, I'm not scared of losing the division at all. We're clearly the best team in the division, and neither of the other teams are good enough to win. But if you do look at the Eagles' schedule, and again, I'm not scared of them, but if you look at their schedule, it's Giants, Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington, and then Cowboys. That's a pretty easy schedule for a team that isn't that good, but is on a hot streak right
Wait,
now.
whose
So
schedule is that? Sorry,
that's the Eagles' schedule, and again, they're
that's a
five and
really
six
easy
right now.
schedule.
So
That's a
that's
really easy schedule.
yes. So if you again Giants, Jets, Eagles, I mean Giants, Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington, then Cowboys last game of the season, which could mean nothing or could mean a lot depending on what happens. So I'm not scared of losing the division, but again, they're 5 and 6, we're 7-3. I mean, you never know what could happen. If we lose these next two games, they beat Giants and Jets, which is for sure possible. It makes it a lot more interesting.
It does. It does for sure. I mean, if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd be a little bit worried. I just
It puts more pressure on these next two games.
It does, and I think this was like this. It felt like a little bit like a playoff game. I know it's cross conference and everything, but to lay an egg out in this game, I feel like is rough. And the Chiefs kind of did too, right? Like the Chiefs offense really got nothing going, but you won the game. I think it's a little bit scary. It makes me question if they don't get the 1 seed and you have to go to a Lambeau. That's a really tough scenario. Even having to go to the Cowboys travel really well. I mean, they're America's team, but even just not playing at home is going to be really scary. So
They're definitely not as good on the road as they are at home, and especially in a cold place. Again, the weather was good in this game. It wasn't cold, it wasn't rainy or anything like that. But yeah, if you got to go to Lambeau, that's tough.
Would Arizona be a home game? Would at Arizona be a home game? I'm wondering. I feel like it'd be 50-50.
It would at least, I was going to say it's at least 50-50.
That's
and
crazy.
most likely more than 60-40. I mean, just look at the Sunday night game tonight. It had to have been, 75-25?
Yeah.
At least. When the Chargers scored that 50-yard touchdown that ended up being the game-winning touchdown, I mean, the crowd maybe was loud for 10 seconds. And then as soon as they were kicking the extra point, it was like dead silent. So it just shows you how many Steeler fans were there, and that's cross country. So then again, the Steelers and the Cowboys are probably the same amount of fans, I would say, across the country. So yeah,
I think
it'd
the
probably
Cowboys. I think the Steelers travel really. The Steelers and the Cowboys are two teams that travel fan wise super super well. Probably the two best.
Probably them, Packers.
Packers.
I think Patriots would probably be up there.
Patriots are up there, but only because they've had a 20-year dynasty.
Yeah.
In the next
But
5 years,
I would say,
I don't know if they're going to be up there, but
yeah. And one last thing I'll say, and we can move off this game if you want, and again, I don't think this determined the game at all. We still would have lost the game no matter what, but the officiating was awful in this game. Just so many missed calls, so many, even though it was a penalty on the punt where he grabbed the face mask and they called it on the other guy for taunting and they didn't call the face mask. they only called it because they saw the video on the replay or the replay on the video board, and that's literally illegal. Like Mike Pereira came on and said you cannot change that call if you like that much later because you either got it from New York, which isn't possible because it's a penalty, or you saw it on the video board, which they clearly did because they had no intention of calling it. So the officiating was awful in this game, and again, I don't think it mattered the outcome of the game, but it was really bad officiating in that game.
Yeah, the officiating has been pretty spotty throughout the league for sure. But yeah, I would also agree it probably didn't cost the Cowboys the game.
No, it was just it was just really bad though. But yeah.
Yeah. I guess another game would probably be this is the biggest upset to me. It wasn't the most exciting game, but it was the biggest upset. Texans at Titans. The Texans are able to win 22-13.
You know what?
Or sorry,
Actually killed me during
the Texans were home actually, but
the Titans were home.
Titans were home. Okay.
What killed me in this game is when we were looking at predictions and looking at spreads. I did look at this one for the Texans. I don't think I was ever seriously gonna take it, but I looked at it and thought about it because again, the Titans have had such big wins, and you play the Texans, and it just has to be a letdown game. It just has to be. And I thought about taking it, but I was never seriously considering taking it. But it definitely piqued my interest when we were looking at our predictions.
Yeah, I didn't know how to feel about the fact that Texans are winning this game because as a Pats fan, the Titans' next game is now New England, and that's kind of scary because, it's tough for teams to lose back-to-back, especially when they're a well-coached team, but overall doesn't mean anything for that game, not necessarily, but the Titans did definitely not look this game. Tannehill, 4 picks. He just didn't look great. The running game just didn't really get anywhere for the most part. I've never been a big Titans person. This game doesn't really mean too much to me. I just think it's a little bit of a trap game. Division, even though it's the Texans, it's still a division. It's a division game, which those can kind of go anywhere, as we've seen just in the league in general. But I definitely don't like this team to remain the 1 seed. I don't think they're going to be the 1 seed by the time the year closes. I don't think the Titans are the best team in their division. I think the Colts are better. I've pretty much said that the whole year. I think they'll probably still end up winning the division because they have a big lead, but I do think the Colts are a better team, and it would not shock me if the Colts were winning this division. With no Henry, they just have no dominant force, and I think every time that Tannehill has to do something to get his team out of a hole or to, lead his team to victory, we've seen time and time again he just can't do it. He's a competent quarterback when he has Derrick Henry and he has a really good offensive line and he has a really good coach in Mike Vrabel, but when everything's not going for him, we just see that he's not really able to throw his wide receivers open. He's just not a great quarterback. To me, some people had him in like the when Tannehill's hype was at an all-time high, some people were willing to throw him at like the 9th or 10th best quarterback in the NFL. I've never thought he's even ever close to that. I think at best he's like the 14th best quarterback in the league. I just don't think he's very good, and with no Henry and when your game just doesn't go your way, this is the exact type of game where we can see that he's just really not that great of a quarterback.
Yeah, wait, quick question. Would you rather have him or a healthy Baker Mayfield?
A healthy Baker. Healthy Baker.
Yeah, because I view them very similarly. And again, Baker's been injured this entire season, so it's hard to look at his stats and what he's done and really judge him on it. But I view him very similarly, and I'd probably agree, to be honest. And I think this game showed it. Like, if you ask him to try and make plays and win a game for you, it's just not going to happen. And again, this is against arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL. So if you try to do it against a Chiefs, a Patriots, a Bills, whatever other a Ravens, it's just totally not going to work out. So definitely some concern there. And again, by the time the playoffs come, this team, like you said, I don't see them being the 1 seed. I see whether the Chiefs, the Ravens, possibly one of those teams becoming the 1 seed in the AFC, not the
New
Titans.
England, Buffalo.
Potentially, yes. And we'll get to Buffalo. That was a great pick by you, taking the Colts there. But by the time the playoffs come, this team is just, I don't think they're going to have any sort of identity because the running game is just not going to be there, and the passing
Even if
game
Henry's
is
back, I don't think it's going to be.
And I don't think he's coming back. I mean, I know he's a freak, and he probably heals a lot faster than other people, but I'd be very surprised if he came back. He'd have to be like 1,000% healthy, because if you were to risk an injury again, then he's out for all of next year, if you risk an injury. So it's a huge risk to do. And again, if you're in the position where you really need him, you might have to, but it's a huge back and forth with that. Again, it's a guy you're paying a lot of money to as well. So that's a huge question for them when it comes up. But I think by the time the playoffs come, I could really see him being a one and done, because this defense is good, but it's not good enough to overcome an offense that really is not going to be that good
Yeah, I don't
without
think this
obviously
defense is
Henry.
really that great. I don't think
Yeah,
it's very good.
so by the time the playoffs come, I could really see him being a one and done, depending on the matchup, obviously. But
Yeah, I think depending on I think New England's a good matchup for them. If they were to
in
get New
terms
England,
of
they play New England this week. Well, I
in
think
terms of
Vrabel
good for the Titans or good for the
good for the
Patriots?
Titans. Good for the
Okay,
Titans. I think
okay.
that's a good matchup. I think the Ravens are a good matchup for the Titans. I don't think the Chiefs are a good matchup. I don't particularly think Buffalo's a great matchup for the Chiefs either.
I actually don't. I think the Ravens are a bad matchup for the Titans, because they have a bad pass defense, and I mean, I guess that means you're forcing Tannehill to throw the ball, which he's not good at. Like, I feel like the Ravens are actually a bad matchup for the Titans if they were to play each other.
I guess the reason I'm saying they're a good matchup is I just like Vrabel. I think Vrabel's kind of similar to Belichick in that he's just not a dumb coach. If if you play a team like the Ravens, he's not just going to let Lamar Jackson run all over him for 200 yards and be able to constantly have a 7 to 14 point lead. At least that's how I view it. I just he's going to make Lamar throw the ball. He's going to put Lamar in uncomfortable positions, and I think that's what makes the Ravens a good matchup for the Titans. And I don't think Vrabel's like, yeah, I just that's how I view it. Maybe because if Tannehill has to throw the ball, then that's not great. But I think Tannehill's going to have to throw the ball against pretty much any team except for maybe the Chargers, in which they would literally, no matter how their run game is looking, they'd probably be able to run on them for 300 yards. But yeah,
Yeah. But I guess speaking of the Ravens, are we done with the Titans game? Are we
yeah, we
done
can go
with
to the
that,
Ravens
or?
game.
I would say the Ravens game, obviously Lamar, that was a question which, he had an illness the whole week, but it didn't really seem that serious. And then
Yeah,
just, earlier today, right kind of before the game started, they said he's inactive. And the backup's basically a Lamar Jackson 2.0, which is obviously not as good, but he basically looks like him. He plays like him. And literally, if you didn't know who was starting the game, you would thought it was Lamar if you just turned the game on. But for them to win that game, that was that was just typical Bears, I would say. You know, like Fields wasn't playing great, and again, I hate the offensive play calling for the Bears. They just don't let Fields try and do anything, and I just think that Nagy's just. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets fired now, but I don't think they do that in season at Chicago. I think they wait till the end of the season. But they don't let Fields do anything. As soon as Dalton comes in, they actually let him throw the ball. He had 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. But yeah, for them to lose that game, that was just typical Bears. A huge win for the Ravens, because they could have won 6-4. The Bengals would be 6-4. Obviously, they already beat them, so they'd actually be in first place in that division. And again, for the 1 seed, 7-3 is big. But obviously, an ugly game without Lamar, but a big win for them, considering no Lamar right before the game starts, and the Bengals won later in the day, and you still first place by at least half a game, I guess.
yeah, it was a game that I was hoping the Bears would win, just because the AFC race, seeding, and all
Yeah.
that. But yeah, the Bears are just bad. Matt Nagy, I was kind of a Nagy fan, I feel like, at one point, but he should probably be gone. Pace probably gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just to lose
And
that game is bad.
Yeah, and the question is, again, I would be very surprised if he's not gone. But the next head coach you bring in would obviously have to be a Fields fan. So like, who would that really be? Who's obviously in that kind of market? I guess you'd
I
have to see
mean,
at the end of the
I
season.
think there's a lot of head coaches that would that would take a job in Chicago with. It's not the best roster, but you'll get Mac back next season. I'm pretty sure he's not great, but he's still good.
Yeah,
Uh, Fields, I think, is an exciting quarterback. I mean, he's definitely not like a Rosen where he gets drafted 10th overall and the next year he's just getting cut. Like, that's not going to happen. He
yeah.
still has plenty of talent, and I think there's going to be a coach that would love to coach Fields. Who is it? I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe if you can try to get some college coach out of college that has been reluctant, maybe. I don't know. Maybe
Because
like
yeah,
a
because
Bieniemy. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly a Bieniemy. And the funny thing is, Dable was obviously the hottest name last year, and he didn't get a head coaching job. Now this year, they haven't looked so great. We can move to that game. They lose 41-15 to the Colts. Their offense has really not been that impressive at all this season. Honestly, their defense has been really good. Before this game, they were averaging their defense was allowing 15 points per game. They didn't play the best teams, to be fair, but still, that's still what the stat was after 9 games. But their offense just has been just just so different from what it was last year. And again, maybe that's because they don't have much of a running game this year. They had at least a little bit last year and opened the game up. But I mean, the Colts, like you said, you've been on the Colts. I've been on the Colts too, but you've been way more on the Colts. And Jonathan Taylor, 5 touchdowns, a huge performance from the Colts, and a huge win to get over 500 as well.
Huge win for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor, obviously a huge day. I saw some stupid hype on social media about like, oh, can we start getting Jonathan Taylor in this MVP debate? Stop.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Stop it. He's not even the best running back in the league. He's probably not even a top 3 running back. He may not even be a top 5 running back in the league. He's had a great year, but just pure talent. Getting rid of all the variables that you can't control, getting rid of offensive line, getting rid of the type of games you're playing. He's not a top 5 running back in my opinion. He's really good. He's top 10, but he's not top 5 to me. He wouldn't be the NFL's yard leader and for rushing if Henry didn't get hurt. So no, but I think it was a really good game for the Colts. It solidified them to most people as a for sure wild card contender. And if they continue this play and the Titans continue to fall off, like if the Titans lose next week, Colts can get a win. They're in that division race again. I know they've lost both of their games to Tennessee, so they're going to have to beat them, and they can't tie. They have to actually win more games than the Titans. But yeah, I think the Colts can do it.
Yeah, and
I'd like to see Wentz have some more production. He just doesn't really do that much, but this was clearly not a game where he had to do anything insane.
Yeah.
But I would like to see some more, that type of scenario where I like to see with all teams is maybe you're down 7 or 14 and Wentz really needs to have a couple drives to get his team back in the game. Because that's the way the playoffs are, is if you're a Super Bowl winning team, one of the games, whether it's the divisional, conference, or Super Bowl, every single year, that quarterback has to have that moment. And if you can't show that to me in the regular season, then I have a tough time picking you in the postseason. So I'd like to be able to see Wentz have some freedom to do that. So far this year, he hasn't really done it, but I think he can. So yeah, I think this Colts team's really good though, for sure.
Yeah, and one thing about Wentz, I'm looking at his numbers from his what would have been his MVP year, obviously if he didn't get injured. But he played 13 games that year. Completion percentage 60%, 3,300 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. This year, 11 games. And again, 63% completion percentage, 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, 3 picks. And the touchdowns obviously aren't the same as what it was when he was with the Eagles in 2017. Because again, you have a back like Taylor who has 13 rushing touchdowns this season, and they're obviously a run-based offense. So it's a different offense than he was in Philadelphia, where it was a lot more passing. But he's played really well this year. And again, he may not put up insane numbers like 400 plus yards, 4 touchdowns, but he's just consistent. And you can see when he has time and he has a good running game and he has weapons around him, he could be really effective. And as long as he stays healthy and doesn't make dumb decisions, which so far he hasn't, or at least I guess the one Tennessee game he did. But other than that, he really hasn't made super dumb decisions. He's played really well. So I think it's the people.
He's been good. I don't know if I've been underwhelmed by Wentz, but I would have liked to see more going into the year. Going into this year, I was expecting him to hopefully become a top 10 quarterback again and really make some of those plays that you can say, okay, I remember this from his MVP year, like 4 or 5 years ago or whatever, before he got hurt. I haven't really seen a lot of that, but he's been good. He's been consistent. He's been mistake-free other than the Tennessee game for the most part. But we're gonna have to see more, 100% in my opinion. It's sometime in the next 7 weeks or whatever.
And yeah, there's going to be games where they play the Bucs this upcoming week. So obviously that's going to be a game where the run's probably not going to be there. They're still going to push it, of course, because that is what their offense is. But yeah, that's a game where you're probably going to have to pass the ball a lot against a very weak secondary. New England, they play them in 2 weeks after the Texans. Again, that should be an easy game, but who knows? So those are games where you're going to have to pass the ball. So we'll see if he could put up big numbers. But again, right now, QBR-wise, he's 12th in the league, which isn't really that bad, to be honest. And maybe that improves over these next couple of games. But Just quickly, the Bills, obviously they lose. The Patriots now move into first place. Obviously, you have to feel good about that. But I guess more concern on the Bills side. I mean, they're just like I was saying earlier. They're just not the same team they were last year, and it's weird because their defense was the problem last year, and now it's their. I would say it's their offense that's the problem this year so far.
I would agree. I think you have to look at Josh Allen. He just has not been as good, and I think last year I was very hesitant to jump on the Josh Allen hype train, and then I did eventually just give up and say, yeah, he's gonna be that guy, and I thought he was gonna be that guy, but this year he just hasn't been as great. He's been like a middle ground between his MVP self and his like you can see the talent but still makes a bunch of mistakes guy, which he wasn't earlier in his career. I think you've kind of seen a middle ground of that. You've seen some MVP type plays. You've also seen some plays that make you remember his like first and second year in the league, which are just not great. Where he just doesn't even look like he knows what he's doing out there. Um, I think I picked the Patriots to win the division this year. I definitely picked them like a few weeks ago at least. I definitely picked the Patriots to be in the Super Bowl. I think this Bills team's probably a little bit overrated, and I probably maybe have overrated them a little bit too. Josh Allen, I think he'll get back to his normal self, which is the guy that is a top 5 MVP candidate. But if he's not that, then we've seen a big drop in production in Diggs. This offense is not going to be as good. The defense, well, it's not bad. It's pretty decent. It has some times where it shines. It's not a defense that's going to carry you anywhere. They need to find their mojo back before these upcoming 2 New England games, because if they don't win either of the New England games, then they're done. They're toast. They're not going to win the division. New England's not going to choke it in the last few games, I don't think. So, yeah, I think they need to at least split the New England games, and they need to find a way to get Josh Allen back to his MVP self. Because if he's not playing at an MVP level, this team is just not going anywhere. They can't run the ball. Like, you just can't run
Yeah.
the ball. And if you can't throw the ball either with an MVP talent guy it's not going to happen. And I think if you made me guess right now, do they return to their form or do they kind of stay where they are right now and maybe you're out in the wild card? I would probably pick them to be out in the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, after 10 games, it's too much of a resume not to think that they'd stay where they are right now and not return to where they were last year. It's just been too many games. Again, a team like the Chiefs is different because they've shown you in the past that they are one of those elite teams, obviously. But the Bills, they did it for one season last year, but it's only been one season. It could obviously just be an off year, a weird year. And now this year, we're kind of seeing that maybe that year was kind of just a weird year that happened and they got lucky. But I'd probably agree. I'd probably say that, yeah, they probably are like I don't know what their record would end up being, but yeah, like a couple games over 500, not, 12-5, 13-4 type team. So we'll
Yeah.
see where they end. That'll be a very interesting division race.
We thought,
Are
yeah.
those, well, I was going to say, are those Bills Patriots games in the next couple of weeks, or is one of them like the last game of
Um,
the season? Actually,
it's like in a few weeks. They don't play till like December
there's one December 6th, and the other one is December
26th, I think.
26th. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is the third to last game of the season.
Those are going to be those 2 games will determine the division. Um, so,
Yeah.
and I'm picking the Patriots in both, by the way. I said that before, picking the Pats in both of them. So,
All right. Well, I guess we'll see. Again, that first game's in 2 weeks. But moving on to probably the game of the week, which happened in the early window, Packers-Vikings. Vikings win 34-31. Crazy game, back and forth all the way. Looked like it was going to be the Packers win, then a Vikings win, then Packers win, and the Vikings pull it out in the end, which is very unlike the Vikings, but it happened. Um, Huge win for them after a big win against the Chargers last week. A huge win this week against the Packers, obviously. Hurts for the Packers 1 seed, like we talked about, but huge for the Vikings wild card chances. Jefferson had a huge game. Cousins had a great game. It looked like I don't know if they actually ever showed a replay of it, but it looked like he threw a game-ending interception to Darnell Savage. I thought it was an interception. I didn't see a replay of it, so I never actually saw what happened, but I thought it was game over at that point because obviously it was 31-31. You give the ball back to the Packers with, what was it, like 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes left, whatever it was. And obviously the Rodgers knows how to end the game like that. Depending on if Crosby could hit the field goal, that's a huge concern for them right now. But I guess just how big of a win was this for the Vikings? And I guess maybe how big of a loss was this for the Packers, or do you not
It's
view
a
it as
big
that big of
it's
a
a big
loss?
loss for the Packers and a big win for the Vikings. This keeps them in the wild card race for sure to be 5-5. The Panthers lose this week. The Saints lose this week, although the Eagles win. But the Saints lose this
Yeah.
week, which I think is big. I think you're more scared of the Saints at their peak than you are the Eagles at their peak. It's a huge win for the Vikings. I think if you're the Packers, if the NFC North teams could pick when they get to play the Packers or the Vikings, sorry, I'd be like, can I play the Vikings on Sunday night or Monday night or Thursday night?
Yeah.
Because I just don't want to play them in the 1 p.m. window. If this is a primetime game, the Vikings are not winning. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
People have talked about a little bit Kirk Cousins having a quietly good year, 18 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's been efficient. The reason maybe he doesn't get any talk is because he's Kirk Cousins, and we know what we need to see from Kirk Cousins to have him to elevate him into like a top 10 quarterback status. And winning this type of game is not that. We would need to see something in the playoffs, probably a Super Bowl run, I think, for most people to be convinced that he's gonna be that type of guy now. But yeah, he's had a quietly good year. It's a huge loss for the Packers. I mean, this loss would have been okay had the Cardinals lost, and you can kind of say, okay, we're both 8-3, but now the Cardinals are 8-2, and you getting the 1 seed is not within your control anymore. It
9-2
theoretically,
actually.
sorry, did I say 8-2?
Cardinals
I
are
meant
not.
to say
Yeah,
9-2.
9-2.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I meant to say 9-2, but yeah, the 1 seed is not within the Packers' control anymore. It theoretically will be because the Cardinals probably aren't going to go undefeated the rest of the year, but it sucks because this should have been your 1 seed to lose, and now you have to hope for teams to keep losing. And the Packers, they have some tough games coming up.
Yeah.
Next week they play the Rams at 4:20. That's probably going to be a Romo Nance game maybe not. I don't know.
It's a Fox game.
So, okay, so that's a Buck Aikman game. They play the Ravens on December 19th. They host the Browns on Christmas. Then they play the Packers again on January 2nd. So they've got some games that are tough. The Rams game is clearly not an easy win. The Ravens game is not an easy win. The Browns game, it's on Christmas, so I don't think that's an easy win. That might be a Romo Nance game, unless it's Fox too. I don't know, but. And then the Vikings, you host the Vikings on January 2nd, which shouldn't be an easy win, or it should maybe, but it's not going to be because you just lost to the Vikings. So. Yeah, I would not right now pick the Packers to get the 1 seed because of this loss. I think, yeah, they won this game. I would say they could probably afford to lose the games that are even debatable. Like, they could afford to lose the Rams game. They could afford to probably lose the Packers game and be fine and get that 1 seed. But right now, I don't think I'd pick the Packers to get the 1 seed. I'd still pick them to be in. They're going to be in competition the rest of the year. But I think, Packers versus the field, I'm going with the field. And, that's easy. That's an easy question, I think. But still, it's... Home field is huge for them, and to lose this game, it's a big blow. So,
Yeah, for 1 seed, they almost have to win next week against the Rams. And again, if they would have won this week, then you can afford that loss, like you were saying, to the Rams next week. But yeah, if they lose next week, then they're 8-4. Again, Cardinals have a bye, so they don't even have to play. It makes a huge makes a huge difference there. But yeah, honestly, at the start of this game, the Packers didn't really look that impressive. I know they ended up being really impressive and they put up 31, but it almost looked like last week against the Seahawks when they just had absolutely nothing going. And even though they won that game, they were really not impressive last week. And again, the start of this one, they started off very slow. They got it going, like I said. But that defense definitely showed some holes in it. It's been really good so far this year, especially the last couple of weeks. But they showed some holes. Especially in deep passes. Again, Jefferson tore him up for I think he had 169, 2 touchdowns. So yeah, and that's Kirk Cousins tearing you up. And again, like you said, if this is a primetime game, no, Kirk Cousins isn't having this type of day. 24-35 for 340 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's not doing that in a primetime game. But still, if you're the quarterbacks you're gonna have to face in the NFC is Brady, Stafford, Murray, and Dak, which those are arguably 4 of the top 8 quarterbacks in the league, you'd probably say, depending on where you have, I guess, Murray or Dak. So that's just, it's going to be, I guess, even Stafford. But yeah, that defense, we'll see if it actually is this type of really good defense, or it kind of goes back to the defenses they've had the last couple years where they're really not that good. And maybe their stats say they're better, but they're really not that good.
I would lean towards you'd think they're better, but they're probably not that good. That's where I would lean. I think this is a team that's pretty similar to last year's team. Not identical, but I think they're pretty similar to last year's team, which this year, I mean, any of these years it could have been enough to get it done. It came up just short. I think if he made me pick, I would say this year they probably come up just short again. Does that happen to be another conference finals or maybe losing the divisional? I don't know, but it depends on the matchup. But yeah, I think this team's really close to being that Super Bowl team, but I think that their defense probably needs to be a little bit better. Maybe you need another piece. Maybe you need another piece in offense too. I don't know, but yeah. I guess other games this week, that's pretty much it. I mean, there were some other interesting games. Like the Lions almost beat the Browns. I'm sure there are probably a solid amount of people that bet Lions money line that are disappointed.
Probably, yeah.
Because this is a game that, I mean, the Browns have just not looked impressive, but the Browns end up squeaking out a win there. Cam Newton's return gets spoiled by Washington. Cam didn't have a bad game. He had some moments. He looked fresh for sure. But, I mean, Heineke, 16 for 22, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Washington pulls out that win. And, I mean, the NFC East is 100% a bad division, but we're kind of starting to see the Washington and the Eagles kind of get into form a little bit. So maybe it becomes something interesting. Not maybe for the division, but, I mean, Washington or the Eagles, one of those teams is probably going to be in the hunt for that last wild card spot in the next, for the final few weeks, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, right now Philadelphia is 9th and Washington's 11th. I mean, Washington most likely not.
I mean,
and again, I don't even know.
I don't know. If Heineke plays well, then you never
Yeah,
know.
it's the only problem for both teams is that, and I think I'd trust Hurts more than Heineke. I mean, it's not that much, but it's just two quarterbacks that are so unproven and so just not trustworthy that it's hard to bank on them, leading their team to victories down the stretch in a playoff type hunt. So that's tough, again, especially when the teams around them, you have Garoppolo in San Francisco. It's obviously just a better team, more experienced quarterback. Even Carolina, I don't love him, but at least Cam, he gives you a different dynamic, and he's obviously been there. He's been an MVP, been to a Super Bowl, been in multiple playoff appearances. Obviously Minnesota as well. The Saints, even though their quarterback situation is dicey, they're still a professional team, and they do know how to win. They've been to the playoffs for Sean Payton, so it will be tough for sure, and we'll see. But like I said, the Eagles' schedule, it's super easy. I mean, their only tough game is the Cowboys game, and that's the last game of the season. So you have, 5 games until then, 6 games, whatever it is until then. They could easily go 4-2, 5-1 in those games, and look a lot different compared to where they are right now.
I'm just looking at I think that's pretty much it, but just one quick
Yeah.
thing. I was looking at our award predictions from the beginning of the year. Who do you think's had the better year so far in terms of their overall predictions? I think you've had the better year. Looking back at it, Mahomes and Wilson are probably not going to happen. Both of them probably won't happen.
No.
But I think Mahomes is closer, I guess, but probably won't happen. Your defensive player of the year, though, that could definitely happen.
Yeah, that's still – there's no clear favorite, but he's probably at least top 3.
Chase Young, definitely not going to happen out for the year, but I guess Kyle Pitts' pick, both of us, wasn't great. Your defensive rookie of the year, I mean, Micah Parsons, he got a free sack today.
Well, I don't think they counted it.
Did they not count
his
it?
third sack? Well, because I was looking at the stats, and they said he only had 2 sacks, which wouldn't have counted that last one when Mahomes was, scrambling around or whatever, and he kind of went down, which that should be a sack because it wasn't it technically was a rush, but it wasn't a rushing attempt. That was just a play design, and so I think that should be a sack, but they didn't. It seemed like they didn't count it.
Maybe they might argue to give himself up. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
Listen,
but whatever.
Even if it should count as a sack, it really shouldn't. But whatever. But he's probably going to win it, right?
He's arguably in the conversation for just defensive player of the year. So there's also that argument as well.
I mean, I don't know that he's in that argument, but yeah, I guess he's in that next tier down below.
I think again, there's not really a clear favorite, like we were saying. I mean, Garrett is there. I don't even know what Donald's stats are. I guess he's just there, but I don't even really know. There's no favorite, to be honest. So I think he's for sure there. And if he were to end up with 12 plus sacks as a rookie, and all the he does get a lot of tackles as well, and the pressures, quarterback hits, all that stuff as well. So I think there would be a case if he were to end up with 12 plus sacks.
I think you'd have to have 15.
It's not
but
out of the realm. He's at
it's not.
if
If he has
they
a monster second half of the year, he
he's
can.
I mean I guess he's technically at 8, but I guess he could be at 9 depending on what they do with the sack. But I guess right now he's at 8. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Your comeback player of the year, Dak Prescott. Mine was McCaffrey. Is Prescott the favorite right now? I mean, I'd have to assume he is, but
I'd assume he is because I wouldn't know anyone else who would be there anyways, and I feel like it would almost be him anyways, like no matter what, to be
yeah.
honest.
Coach of the year are both of ours are looking all right. I think McVay is probably out of reach now, just because the Cardinals are going to win
Yeah,
that division. You'd assume, but
yeah. I think yours is for sure looking better than mine.
yeah. And then both of our Super Bowl picks. I mean, yours is
One,
looking better than mine
yeah, I
for
guess
sure.
technically mine is better because both teams are most likely making the playoffs. Again, that would be the Browns being the lesser of those, but um, yeah, I would say I guess mine are looking better, even though neither of us look great in
Neither
that.
of us are looking great. Yeah, had
Yeah.
I just gone with somebody other than the Seahawks, mine would look better. But had you kept with Chiefs,
You talked
yours
me
would be.
out of it,
I know.
so
Yeah. I mean, I
um,
think well, that would have been a boring pick. Had you done Rams Chiefs, that would have been a lot more boring than Rams Browns. So I'm
no, it
happy
would
you
have been.
switched,
It would have
but
been. Yeah.
it's not
Except right
looking
now, it
good.
would be. I mean, the Chiefs would be that would be looking really good right now.
It would,
But
yeah. All right, but that's pretty much it. Week 11.
well,
Unless you
one
have,
thing I was going to say, just not NFL wise, but NBA wise, we did have a fight tonight.
yeah, we
If
did
you want
have
to call
that.
it that. I mean, do you have any thoughts on it, or do you
I was
not
not
even really
watching the
care about it?
game, but I did see the fight itself or whatever.
Yeah.
Not really. I think LeBron just pisses me off sometimes. I think he just thinks he's like a god, which is true because he is, but like he tries to be this like good person in real life, but you can tell he's just like the most. He just has the biggest ego of all time, genuinely, and he deserves it because if anybody's gonna have a huge ego, it's gonna be LeBron, Tom Brady in the sports world. That is LeBron, Tom Brady, Jacob DeGrom, whatever those types of guys, Trout, Otani, or whatever.
DeGrom?
But I mean DeGrom, yeah, he should or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
he just sometimes he pisses me off, even though he's a good guy and he's done good stuff in the world. I don't think that's like I don't think the good stuff he does in the world is altruistic at all. Like I just feel like he's doing that for his own motives or whatever. If that makes sense. Like there's some people that do good stuff and they're being altruistic about it and they're doing it for other people and not for themselves. I think LeBron wants to be seen as a great guy, and sometimes there are moments when I just look at him and I'm like, you just piss me off because you think you're just cooler than everybody, and you are like he looks like a god, he plays like a god, all that stuff, but I don't know. I don't like LeBron sometimes. So that's really
No, I
my only
mean,
takeaway.
yeah, I mean, we're both on the same page on LeBron. We both don't like him. So, I mean, in this, I mean, did he mean to do it? I think he meant to do it. I mean, like, it's not like he was like it's not like he was kind of raising his arm and hit him. He was like holding his arm, and then he just like elbowed him right, or I guess he punched him in the face, whatever he did in the face. And then he kind of tried to play it off like he didn't mean to do it, and which is typical LeBron, which is do something on purpose, then act as if you didn't do it. So yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree with that. It
I would
was,
agree that he meant to do it. He had like a little
yeah,
fit of rage or whatever. I remember last time. I think it was like the Jokic thing. Like he had a little fit. It's kind of similar to. Do you remember the Ron Artest when he elbowed James Harden? Like
yeah,
it's not similar to that necessarily, but it's similar in the way that like I don't know. He knew that what he was trying to do, but he wanted to make it look like he didn't know that people wouldn't realize it. But obviously,
yeah.
looking back on it, it's relatively clear. It's way more clear with the Artest elbowing James Harden like right in the face, celebrating. But yeah, I listen. I think he meant to do it. I don't like LeBron. I think I like to see a lot of the chippiness. Maybe not to this degree every game, but like I 100% think the chippiness of the NBA has been lost throughout the years. Just there's not any rivalries anymore because everyone that's in the league has all played in the same AAU team at one point, essentially, which is
Yeah.
fine. Like, and everyone should be good sports, but we have lost a lot of that chippiness, and maybe not this thing every game, but if we could see more chippiness in the NBA, I would take it for sure. So
Yeah, I definitely like. Yeah, you're right. There's no rivalries anymore. Like, there's no two teams that hate each other. There just isn't. Maybe in the playoffs, like you could maybe get two teams, but honestly, I feel like that almost died the last couple years. Like you had the Warriors Rockets would always meet Thunder Warriors or a Thunder Spurs or a, Spurs someone else.
But these guys all love
But
each other, which is like
yeah,
it's good
yeah,
and all, but it takes away from the product a little bit to me because I like
no,
to
yeah,
see. I mean, I even though Brady and Manning were friends and have been friends, there was a clear rivalry there, and they clearly hated each other when they were playing against each other. But obviously, they were friends in real life and all that. I just wish we would see some of that. I think we see it a little bit more with like the Jokic type of guys and maybe Giannis, where it's like they weren't on the same AAU teams, so Giannis can afford to hate some of these guys, which I think makes
yeah,
the product a little bit better and more exciting. But like, I mean, every young player that comes into the league, even if LeBron were to elbow them in the face after the game, they'd be like going up to LeBron and asking for a jersey swap and everything. And it's
yeah.
just it takes away from the product a little bit to me. You just don't have that rivalry stuff that I mean, it's kind of been lost in all sports, but I think in basketball it's probably been lost the most.
Yeah, I think there's for sure something different with the international guys because like, yeah, like they didn't grow up playing in the same teams as everyone else and knowing everyone else. They kind of come over when they're 20 years old, 19 years old, and they meet everyone basically. So yeah, like the Jokic, the Lukas, he has a temper as well. Giannis, he doesn't really like anyone else to be honest. So yeah, for sure the international guys I think still have that type of mentality, but yeah, the American players and stuff like that, I think for sure there, I mean, you don't see anything like this is like the only time you ever see anything like this, and it probably happens once or maybe twice a year where there's something like this where it really wasn't even that much to be honest. It was just one guy going crazy after LeBron. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was like the one NBA thing that happened. But yeah, that's really it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be back probably before Thanksgiving. So
Yeah,
we'll probably be back Tuesday, maybe depending on, when and everything lines up, but probably somewhere around Tuesday. Feel free to check out Clip's channel. I'll have a Falcons/Patriots or whatever episode coming up about that. Sure, Brandon will have probably a more somber Cowboys episode at some point.
yeah.
So yeah, but we'll be back. Like all that stuff. Goodbye.